Now, that is an amazing question. Let me tell you why.
Mm,
Back in 2012, to be honest, in this country, we didn't have the slightest idea about what a startup is. When the time came for me to actually just transition into full entrepreneurship, it was a no-brainer. Geretsu is the world's largest network for angel investors, arguably,
mm,
with
mm.
chapters across the whole world apart from Africa. Hi, Johannes. Thank you for making time for our conversation today. My name is Bernard Njathi. I'm calling in from Nairobi, Kenya, that is in East Africa. I am in Agri-Fin-Tech, or rather, our business is in Agri-Fin-Tech. Our business is called Imfuyo, and we are at the intersection of agriculture, financial services, and technology. And all we do is to drive food production by combining finance and technology, just to make sure we are addressing the credit gaps that underbanked farmers face. Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, uh I saw the work that you're doing, and you're currently working with farmers and giving them financing opportunities so that they can expand their business. Before we get into the details of your current business, I want to take you back into how you started your professional journey.
Yeah, so my professional career has been one interesting professional career because
Mm,
it's different gates of different experiences. I kicked off doing sales, and in sales, I worked for different types of companies in different types of industries. For instance, in my early years of starting my corporate life, I did a lot of experiential marketing, experiential sales, and also event activation. Practically just doing B2B and
mm,
B2C,
mm,
sales of events,
mm,
sales of equipment such as
mm,
weighing machines,
mm,
activations of mobile phones, activation of
mm.
SIM cards. So what
Mm.
you call you are very chronic, if you will, salesperson, because you practically have to sell everything just to try and make a shilling or just to try and make a buck or a dollar. That's where I kicked
Yeah.
off
Mm,
and slowly graduated into different other types of um, um, sales or business development roles. The reason why I want to separate the two is because the initial stages of my career were purely selling.
mm,
So I'd say, like I've mentioned, experiential services in terms of events, in terms of activations, in terms of products such as mobile phones, the SIM cards, airtime, all these different small, micro, and medium sales products and services. Then slowly got into financial services. And at the time, I was doing hand in hand with my education, higher learning,
mm,
and selling.
mm,
So I got
mm,
into selling of insurance, and that was around 2009 or this, where I would sell all classes of insurance for about three different corporates, underwriters, insurance underwriters here in Kenya,
mm,
and did that for a period of almost 4 years or so. And I graduated within the insurance industry from just selling basic insurance products to
mm,
moving to B2B insurance products. So you kick off by selling the individual life insurance policies, motor vehicle insurance. Then I graduated into my own insurance agency. And these are the years of about 2012 there. But as I
mm,
did that as well, alongside I started a business. I started a
mm,
business called Garfield. So two
mm,
businesses, the Garfield and Garfield Shield, which were hand-in-hand businesses. At this time, I had gotten the insurance license through the Insurance Regulatory Authority, which is the governing body for insurance in this country. And so I
mm,
moved from just being a usual salesperson selling insurance, but also a company selling B2B insurance products and B2C insurance products, and being a proper financial advisor.
mm,
That was Garfield Shield. But hand in hand, I also opened up the Garfield because I saw a
mm,
big gap of design-related problems. So at the time, and it's a long time ago, at the time, most businesses were not very clear on how to package their branding. So without experience, I just got in there and I would look at companies that don't have a proper position in terms of branding and signages. I'd take pictures of what they have done, go into a graphic studio that is in town, request them to actually amend the graphic according to how I think is best, then head over to the business with the old signage and the new signage, or the old design and the new design. And then business would automatically just flow from that. So I did a lot of that. And still in that business, I had done about under 1 year of consultation or consultancy in media production. So I do know how to run a camera, how to hold a boom mic, how to edit videos and all those things. And I didn't go to school for that. I just got a part-time gig where I would help them get business, still in business development and sales, help them get business in video production, photography, video production, and all that. So at the time I was starting my first business, I started it with 3 different areas of doing business. The first one was insurance, which was a no-brainer. I had a license. The second one was the whole graphical thing. You design signages and brochures for businesses that seem to be outdated and have not yet gotten the flow back then. That's more than, I think, 15 years ago.
Yeah, 13 years, 14, yeah.
Yeah. And the third thing was media production. So I had known how to write up quotations, I had known how to round up a good photographer, a good videographer, how to make sure that they edit the things right, the audio, the visual, how to actually give edited soft copies of pictures in CDs, not even in flash disks, because flash disks were still pretty young then. So in CDs, and at the same time, make sure that they're edited right, they are nicely labeled and all these different things. So it's interesting because at that time, as I was running that three multi-layered business, well, the insurance business was pretty simple. I had built up clientele over the years, plus corporates were all over the place and they needed particular services and individual customers. For the graphical business, I needed to approach a business that seems not to understand their digital, signages or flyers, even just ground presence in terms of signages and banners, all these different things. Well, for the media production, it was quite interesting because it is not your usual cup of tea for you to just wake up one day and find a customer who needs media production services. So I'm talking about shooting of weddings, shooting of burials or special events, baby showers, birthdays, documentaries, TV commercials, all these things. Customers don't shout at the top of their voice when they need these services. So I had to devise a strategy. And my strategy was to literally go into meetings that were restricted for family members and special guests in halls in town, that is in Nairobi, the CBD, Central Business District. So you have so many buildings that allow casual meetings of different groups for whatever reason. So if it's a funeral, I'd go in there and sit down and give my condolences, introduce myself, and try and get some business. If it's a wedding, I do the same thing. If it is a birthday party, I try and do the same thing. Right at the point where they're trying to just come up with the plans of how they're either going to do the event, I would go there and sit down. Times have really changed. Nowadays, you really don't need to meet in a room somewhere and plan such things. You quickly just need to get onto a virtual call like this, a Zoom call, a Google Meet, a Teams call, and have a schedule of how the meeting should go, deliverables, etc., get into a normal WhatsApp group, or even Slack, if anyone wants that, and create literally everything. The last pieces or the last pieces of whatever would be left for that meeting in the current time would be just meet at the venue, if at all it's a venue. But nowadays people are doing virtual parties and all that. So back then, the only way I was able to support those three businesses, especially one for media production, was for me to literally go down to where the different groups were meeting for whatever reason, and I would try and fake to be one of them, or either try and just, be part of the event and make sure that I get everything that I, you know, provide services
I'm
to
sure
them.
there's so many interesting stories from that. Trying to approach.
So there are quite a number of them, and I'll get into that as we go on. So I did that for quite a long time, and I always had that grace that wherever I did business, um, they seemed to have they seemed to have someone that I would talk to who would be interested in helping me move to the next level of either doing business or career. So the time I was still young, I was engaged but not married. So something happened in one of the streets in Nairobi, the CBD, okay, Central Business District. So I was walking and I meet a friend, and this friend tells me she would like to recommend me for an executive sales role for one of the business publishing houses, a newspaper house in the country. And I just said, okay, let me try it out. And that's how I got into media sales of newspaper, TV, and radio. I just got a number from the friend of mine and made a call to the gentleman. Did a quick brief interview via the phone, and I was told just come in for a face-to-face interview. And I went the next week. I think maybe 4 days after, must have been around a Thursday. And I got into the boardroom, two gentlemen, I think a regional sales director and I think the national sales manager as well. Did less than 15 minutes, I had a job because all they were looking for is someone that was hungry, someone that was hungry in selling, someone that truly understood what they would bring to the table. And I just wowed them. I got the job. And I was told, would you want to start now? Would you want to start next week? Because I need to go and package myself in terms of 2, 3 things here and there. So I did that for about close to about an year or so, if I'm not wrong. And again,
This
the same cycle happened to me.
media sells, I guess. Selling
Yeah,
newspapers.
correct. And the same cycle happened again to me. So one of the national sales bosses, actually a general manager at that time, was very impressed with what I was doing and how I was pushing the business. And I happened to walk into Turkish Airlines. Turkish Airlines, the head office in Nairobi, International House there. I believe they're still there. I happened to walk there to sell to them media advertising space, the newspaper, and possibly throw in the radio and the TV. Because I knew them from my earlier years of selling insurance to them. And something happened that now threw me into full technology and financial career, which I'll get into. So they were extremely excited to see me. And and at the same time, they were extremely excited as well to give me business. But they say they are not going to pay in cash. They're going to pay in airline tickets. I bought 6 airline tickets to anywhere in the whole world. And I should go back to the office and tell my general manager and the CEO that these guys want X amount of advertising space for X number of months, and they are paying it in airline tickets to any part of the world, as long as it's Turkish Airlines. And that's opened up a new door because I took a very big business that was actually in favor of the big bosses, leisure and pleasure time, because they ended up just using the airline tickets. And immediately I got referred to a local electronic payments business that was starting in Kenya in late 2013. So that's early 2014. And that's how I got into the fintech space. And practically what I have done between late 2013, early 2014 until now has all centered around technology, um, financial services, electronic payments, loans, and microfinances, because I've jumped around from different corporate to different corporate, either leading their business department or leading their product development department, or working out their strategy, leading the team, or based on technological sales, product development, strategy, expanding the business outside of Kenya, across the continent, into selective markets. And all that has always been technology, sales, technology development, innovations, leadership, financial services such as, again, insurance, and at the same time, loans. So everything that I've done, somehow came up together to what is now the current business called Imfuyo. Literally everything. It's as if it was a package between the year 2009 and
Yeah.
until the year 2020, when I decided to start venturing into business. It's as if
Mm.
it's a folder. It's one of those folder you unlock,
Yeah. Mm.
and you get a
Mm.
whole package of sub folders. You have financial
Yeah.
services there, financial experience, management, sales,
Mm.
product development, innovations, literally everything. So that's the
Mm.
journey
Mm.
into corporate life that I've gone through.
Yeah. There is a
Yeah,
saying,
technology, financial services, and media, and all these other things.
yeah.
Yeah,
There's a saying, I don't know if it's by Steve Jobs, but you can only connect the dots looking back. So, yeah,
yeah,
when you're now reflecting in, yeah, it's very interesting. But
yeah,
from what you've shared with me just now, one question I have is I I want to I want to know what happened to the business, and you transitioned into the Garfield business, the Garfield Shield and the
yeah,
Garfield business, and then
yeah.
also the media production. And then when you
Mm,
shifted into this marketing space advertising, or sales actually,
yeah,
what happened to the business?
yeah,
What was,
yeah. So the
mm,
business is still there. So first thing first, I use the insurance license to actually insure our livestock farmers. Our
oh,
livestock farmers and farmer groups, I still use the same license. I just
mm,
updated it into Imfuyo Insurance Agency, which is an
mm,
independent body, but
mm,
still under Imfuyo, our business.
mm, mm,
Secondly, immediately I shifted to media, like media
mm,
sales, TV,
mm,
radio, and digital. I
mm,
kept the business running, the insurance agency, and the same, the graphical agency, publishing agency, and media production. I kept them running for about 2 years, and I still had
yeah,
customers that I used to service, and then kind of slowly just let it breathe and rest, because at the
mm,
time so many things changed. I got some very engaging um, roles where we needed to travel across the continent, and I'm
mm,
managing teams, and I am, multifunctional,
mm,
talking about regional management, talking about
mm,
um, leading revenue and
mm,
sales, talking
mm,
about leading innovations. So there was so little time to keep touch
mm,
with the business, but I kept it running for about 2 years. Yeah,
yeah. Mm.
yeah,
And also another question around Garfield is why three different layers? Why did you go
yeah,
after the
yeah,
insurance and then the digital, the branding and the
yeah,
consulting for businesses for their media
yeah.
needs, and then also the production? Why the three different layers? Why not just focus on the insurance, which
One.
was what you started out with in the first place?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, and thank you for that. So,
Mm,
unfortunately, because of the complexities of being in a third world, an emerging market, there are
mm,
so many things that fight against what you think ideally would work perfect in uh, first world. For instance, insurance uptake in this country until now is still under 2%, you can imagine.
mm,
And the
mm,
2% only consist of mandatory insurance products, such as motor vehicle insurance, and a big chunk of
mm,
it is pension and health.
mm,
So at the time, you really needed to build up such a huge database just to make a living out of just insurance business. That's one. So there was need for two, which is diversification. And I was always interested in trying to ride the wave. At the time there were just new printing machines that had come into the market. They were printing better flyers.
mm,
There were designers cropping up left and center. There was a lot of information about how to use softwares to design this type of a brochure, that type of a signage. It was that time. That was in
mm,
2010, 11, 12 there. It was that time.
mm,
So I needed to ride on that wave. And how best to
mm,
do it? Target the customer who doesn't even understand. They need a better signage, they need a better flyer, they need a better banner. Pick it, go improve it, go to them and tell them you need to improve it like this, and then charge them. And at the time,
mm,
social media was not highly regarded as a business tool, unfortunately. So
mm,
sending an email or using LinkedIn, which I used to do a lot, was still not highly regarded. So the diversification component really needed me to think outside the box. Then the third thing is, remember I had some prior experience in media production.
mm,
So I kept asking myself, because where I had a one-room office in town, I kept asking myself, there are so many meetings that happen near to the complex that we are in. And all I would ever hear all the time was um, they're either looking for a cameraman,
mm,
videographer, and I have all this experience. I
mm,
had a list of, I think, more than 50
mm,
videographers and more than 20 photographers and
mm,
videographers. So I said, okay, let's continue with the second point, which is diversification. So it was quite difficult to just focus on one and make a
mm,
livelihood. So I needed to spread the
mm.
three to actually make sense. And plus, it gave me a lot of thrill in terms of adventure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can picture that. I
yeah,
can picture that. So it's all about survival at the end of the day. We have to make money.
correct. And let me just bring out this point because I think it's very important. And
Mm,
I think many people overlook this. At times I wish I had, a time clock. If I was able
mm,
to punch into my time clock, take me back to the year 2012 with the knowledge and the information that I have.
mm,
There is so much that I would have done progressively between 2012 until now that would make me very different over time.
mm,
Because
mm,
in 2012, social media was not a common business tool. Digital
mm,
banking was still a very foreign concept. Software
mm,
usage for business processes and just making business easy, and even using softwares to develop content, whether it's video, whether it's picture. Mobile penetration was still very poor. Financial inclusion wasn't so good. Telephony services and mobile money was still a challenge. So
mm,
if I was able to go back 10, 15 years back with everything that I know now, I would have ridden the whole wave. There are so many waves that have happened between then,
mm,
2009 and now. The social media wave, the banking wave, the digital media wave, the digital banking, unbelievably things that we used to think would never happen, and they happen.
mm. Yeah,
I just wish I get that time clock and I was able to go back in time. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I think you're on a very, very promising track, even for this business and the fintech and agriculture. There's been now it's been a very neglected industry for quite some time, and now there's some some efforts to
yeah,
put more emphasis and more attention because there is a lot of the GDP depends on this industry, and now people are starting to
correct.
realize the potential of this business. So I believe you are in a very, very promising track right now as well. But to move into back into uh, you slowly shifted after running the business for 2 years, moved back into the corporate world, and then what was that trigger? I'll come back to I have some things that I noticed that I want to delve into. But what was that point where you're like, okay, I have to get back into, entrepreneurship? This was always there, or what was, you know, the key point where you decided to move back again?
Yeah. So I have always known that my bloodline is all about business, And my grandfather, ironically, was a very successful businessman.
Mm,
And his
mm,
area of expertise was trading livestock, you know.
mm.
And when I was younger, that never hit my mind. Now that I'm getting older, because I'm 36 years old now, as of yesterday, a day before yesterday, I'm 36 years
Oh,
old.
happy birthday. And you're not
Thank you.
old. 36 is, for what you've been doing, this is super, super. I was curious to ask you how old you are because you have a long, long history of experience. And I was like, you look
Yeah.
young. And then like you have done all these things. I was very curious, but yeah, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So the trigger was always meant to be there for me to go back into entrepreneurship.
Mm,
Because even in the many corporate roles that I held, I was always mistaken for either the business owner or
mm,
the CEO of the business or even the founder of the business. I remember I worked for an electronic payments company, and there are
mm,
times people would really mistake me for the, the director or the business owner simply because of how I carried myself and how I was able to
mm,
understand the business. So the triggers for always moving into my own business were always there. And I was able to learn this practically because my thinking process and my thinking ecosystem around running the business was very different. I acted as if I was already in business. I thought as if I was already in business. Running the team
mm,
also was like so. So I was just forced to just get into business. And ironically, everything just came together. Literally everything,
mm,
every piece that I've held in my corporate life came together just to build a business. So even in my corporate world as an employee, somehow I used to find myself thinking and acting and doing things as a business owner. So it was just inevitable. It just happened. Yeah.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting. So, uh, I guess uh, I don't want to linger on. I have one question, but I don't want to. I was okay. Let me get into it. Let me just ask, and I'll move from this business. How did you uh fund? Was it bootstrapped, or how did you start when you were starting your first venture back in
Yeah.
2012?
Yeah.
Or yeah, Garfield. How, did
That's
you
correct. Yes.
how
Yeah.
did you fund it yourself through family and friends? How was the
Mhm.
financing journey? You know.
Now, that is an amazing question. Let me tell you why.
Mm,
Back in 2012, to be honest, in this country, we didn't have the slightest idea about what a startup is. Zero. We
yeah,
did. We
yeah.
didn't. We didn't have any information whatsoever to understand what a startup is. So I got into the business and bootstrapped all the way. If there was any type of capital, which we actually didn't know would be called capital at that time, was
Mm,
possibly self-funded capital and family and friends, where you ask for
mm,
about $300, helps you
mm,
go forth, make some money, then repeat the same, etc., and pay it back. You know that we had absolutely zero knowledge of how to raise capital, how to even do anything. So it was practically based on selling, borrow some
mm,
money here, go do two, three things, sell, make
yeah.
money, pay it back. And it was not a debt type of a structure. It was what you call do or die. You either have to succeed or succeed. There was
Mm,
zero type of financing. We didn't even have
mm,
understanding of what that would be. Now I fast track to now and how dependent we are on raising capital. I get shocked. Two different worlds.
so true, yeah. Also when you're looking through your history as well, I saw one interesting thing. Your social involvement, your community involvement in, I don't want to butcher the name, so I'll just spell it out. Keirstsu.
Keiretsu.
Sorry, Keretsu.
Keiretsu is a Japanese word, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken. It is a Japanese
okay,
word. And
okay.
Keiretsu is the world's largest network for angel investors, arguably,
Mm,
with
mm,
chapters across the whole world apart from Africa.
okay,
So that's something we've been trying to do with them over the years.
okay. So, how was your involvement started there, and what was your experience, and what were you trying to accomplish in that
Yeah.
during your time in that community?
And so that's an interesting one. I'm still a member of Keiretsu.
Okay.
Um, I'm in the Southern California chapter.
Mm,
And how we got to how we got to how I got to be involved with the Keiretsu was an
mm,
interesting experience. I saw a post on LinkedIn,
mm,
um, Keiretsu and all these different conversations about investments. Said,
mm,
okay, then I'd like to listen in.
mm,
So I registered with hopes of just getting to know what is this that they are doing,
mm,
how I can plug into, just taking a leap of faith.
mm,
And I started doing a lot of sessions, just joining chapter after chapter and listening and asking questions and following them, following the mentors and the speakers on LinkedIn, sending emails, and I got referred to more than 100 American businesses, just
oh,
by involvement. I have a
mm,
whole portfolio of companies that I kept in touch with over time and started offering them services that I thought I would offer. They need
mm,
some due diligence information. And mind you, I don't know what due diligence is. But because of listening to so many
mm,
investment chapters, I got to know, and
mm,
because there were all these materials they would share for us to read, I would read them. Then I got to
mm,
know, okay, so some of the services I can offer to these businesses due diligence. So what is due diligence? Helping them package their documents right and helping them package literally everything that is the business in all formats of the business into some certain type of a folder. And
mm,
I started offering this to the businesses. But one thing that was always in my mind, how do I bring these businesses here into
mm,
the continent, into Kenya, and possibly try and replicate the same? So that is what drove me to Keiretsu. One was curiosity. Secondly was, now that I know what they do, what do I think I
mm,
can offer? And then
mm,
thirdly was
mm,
trying to convert some of their businesses to bring them here. But this is where I think a business nugget needs to come in. And this is what you call, let's say, a wisdom nugget.
mm,
Unfortunately, the investment ecosystem of the continent hasn't, and we know this, hasn't matured to a point where we can speak on the same level
mm,
as investors and entrepreneurs in developed markets, mainly the USA. I remember back then where I was really struggling to get certain companies to actually come into the country here. And the services they're offering are services that consumers here can actually buy. But there were so many barriers of entry. For instance, none of them has been to the continent,
mm,
no part of the country in the continent. Secondly,
mm,
they haven't even thought about how to expand out of the US.
mm,
Thirdly, they could be in stages where they're either raising money for seed or for scale or just usual scale based on the production and where they're at. So all these things I didn't know then. And the companies that I wanted to bring here, didn't also know this. I remember there's one alcoholic beverage, one alcoholic drink that is
mm,
specifically for ladies. I'll not mention it. They were just doing their seed round back then in the US in 2018. And I went out and got um, a local brewer here who wanted to actually license their product here, and everything was just right, including documentations and all these things. And I shared the same with the startup in the US that had just raised capital, but they were not interested to come in. I also remember there's a manufacturing company that had just created a very unique building technology and a very unique building cement. I won't mention the name because now it's very well known. But they operate both in Canada and the US. We went so far as actually getting cement manufacturing companies here to actually just consider their technology and bring it down here. The problem is the capital needed was just too high. So what am I saying? One, curiosity got me into carrots. Secondly, I got to know the services they were giving to entrepreneurs. And then I started offering the same services to the same entrepreneurs. Then the third thing is I got so interested that these companies can actually do business here for me to make money. So I started then trying to convert them to come down here. And we actually did a bit of work. We were able to work with a Chinese company here. Actually, 3 Chinese companies here. We made a bit of money. And then some of them either closed shop or diversified or pivoted to other things or left the market. So that is what led me there. Again, it's the whole entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, I was about to say that. I was about you just hustling and hustling and hustling, just going
Yeah,
after it constantly. That's it is in your
correct,
blood. I can sense it.
correct. And
Wow.
I'm happy I
Yeah.
was able to do such things back in the day. Right now, I'm a firm believer of doing one thing and doing that thing well, making sure that you do it to the best of your abilities. Yeah.
Mm, that comes
Yeah.
from experience. Yeah. So now I guess I will start with Agro Quechua, Africa. I'm sorry if
Yeah.
I'm yeah. So I saw that
Yeah.
and that caught my attention, and it's right about the same time when Imfuyo also, am I saying it right? I'm sorry for all this name.
Correct.
I'm sorry for
No,
the names.
that's correct. That's very correct.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Keisho and Infoyo, what's the relationship? How did you get started with Keisho? And then we'll finally get into
Yeah.
Infoyo.
Yeah. So actually, ironically, I started Lofty Kesho in 2018. And I
Mm,
started Lofty Kesho in 2018 mainly to, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Very good. So I started Lofty Kesho in 2018. And the reason why I started it was to make a channel that we can use or ride on to bring in the many businesses that I was being exposed to via Keiretsu and have them come down here into the continent, you know?
Mm,
And that is how Lofty Kesho started. Then throughout my corporate career life, because I was still in it, I got invited into Enterprise Singapore Agency event
mm,
where they had called all these different organizations into the country, and these different organizations had different technologies, and they wanted a partner in Africa or a partner in Kenya. So that also opened up my mind because I met all different types of technology companies in agriculture, in manufacturing, and all these things. So as I progressed doing, um, the corporate world and establishing Lofty Kesho and working with foreign companies, bringing them down here, then something came to my mind. My grandfather was a very prominent livestock trader.
yeah.
And I started asking myself, why is it farmers are always selling their livestock? So they don't sell it because they want to sell it, because a farmer and a livestock have a bond like a mother and a child. So they only sell it because of an emergency. They need some money to pay off some bills, some urgent financial commitments, etc., etc. And so I always wondered why. I would see my grandfather always sell livestock. He was a livestock trader, yes, but even the livestock in our own homestead, he would still sell them. So,
Mm,
and even the neighbors would still sell their livestock. So that is how now Lofty Kesha started getting into livestock financing. And that was now in late 2020. For we had like 2 years of just trying to work with international companies and offer services that led them to enter into the Kenyan market. And mind you, I was still doing the corporate thing. So in late 2020, then I decided to try and get into livestock business, but with a touch of financing, a touch of insurance, and also a touch of credit. So that was the start of lofty agricultural business, which later has metamorphosed to Imfuyo. Yeah,
Yeah, very interesting.
yeah,
So, uh, it was just purely like you said from the start, from inspiration from your grandfather, how this whole journey started.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. So,
And I didn't know about it
before we,
until I didn't know about it until I started just asking myself, what is this that is driving me? You know.
mm,
Then I started
mm,
just asking questions and I started getting some answers. Yeah,
wow. So,
yeah,
you guys, you were very close with your grandfather, I'm assuming,
yeah.
when you,
Yes, I was. Yes,
mm,
I was.
mm, mm. You're
Yeah,
very lucky, yeah, to have been exposed to this sort of mindset early on is very, very, I guess, it defines your life calling, and you're very lucky to have found what you would say as your calling, you know. But so getting into
yeah,
now, where what was that when you're getting started was in foil, uh, like
yeah,
what was the step that you needed to take to quit your stable, you know, your comfortable corporate job, and then moving into this startup journey, that that step that you took, that risk that you took, or what was
yeah.
how was it like? How was the start? And uh, just talk me through that first maybe half a year journey in foil.
Well, so first things first, I'm a firm believer um, in higher authority. That's God. Uh, that's the first thing. Secondly, all the way through my journey, I was always being pushed, to just get into entrepreneurship. And then all through this journey, I was doing entrepreneurship without knowing, because I would do some side gig, some side job, Even through my corporate life, I would still do some side gigs. I would find myself doing some ticketing events, and I
Yeah.
go out and buy, the ticketing wraps that you put on the hand and
Mm.
sell them into events, and just not knowing what I was doing. So when the time came for me to actually just transition into full entrepreneurship, it was a no-brainer. It was a
Mm.
no-brainer. It was a zero thinking um, approach towards yes or no into the entrepreneurship world. I had some savings that I thought would take me through to a particular point in life.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course, shock on me when you get into entrepreneurship, all your savings just quickly
Yeah.
evaporates.
When
That's
you
the
said
first
I
thing.
thought when you said I thought I had some
Yeah,
savings, that got me.
yeah,
That was funny.
yeah. Because I thought I had seen it out properly, and I thought because of my previous experiences, it would have been
Mm.
just an on and off type
Mm.
of a conversation. Just switch it
Mm.
on, I'll get customers, I'll make money, and then I'll move on. Oh, shock on
Uh,
me. So I
mm.
got into the business with a bit of capital. So I was able to self-fund myself, fuel the car, pay house bills, take care of the family, and still get time to go down to the ground and meet the farmers, the farmer groups, and all stakeholders within the ecosystem of agriculture and livestock, ask questions, do proof of concepts. I
Mm.
had that at least just before money
Mm.
ran out, and I continued
Mm.
bootstrapping. And
Mm.
we got some angel investors that were supporting us out of goodwill at the
Mm.
time. So
Mm.
transitioning of that journey, I will not lie to you. I didn't have a script. I didn't have a script of transitioning from a stable
Mm.
income employment to
Mm.
entrepreneurship. And if anyone has a script, I don't think it's an honest script. It's driven by bias. So, but I had some runway in terms of savings, in terms of being able to take care of the family and get to a point where I've done enough proof of concept before the money ran out. But we got some angel investments, and I think that would have been about 8 months in, just between six to about 6 to about 8 months, we got some angel investment, just
Wow.
small capital, about $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, cumulatively up to about $11,000 over a period of time. It was
Mm,
just out of agricultural passion.
mm.
Yeah, so I will not
Local
lie.
investors?
It was
Local
tough.
or
Yeah, local
uh,
investors that I was able to just convince that this is where we want to go. We are not very certain of the picture, but we need some money to be able to move around. So the money, I would use it to take care of the family, take care of the business. And I was the only employee. So when we started doing a bit more work on the ground, I would hire people, I would hire people and train them for specific role.
mm,
So I hire you to just talk to farmers. And what you're going to be talking to farmers is this script. I give you the script, you read it and you understand it. And then I look for a veterinary officer when need them to do a specific things and I give them a script. And we agree that transportation, I'm taking care of it. So I'll fund them from where they are to where we will be. And then they will use my vehicle to wherever we'll be. I will pay for their meals and accommodation and possibly give them an allowance of so. And work with them on the ground for about 1 week. I did that for the whole of 2021, almost 3 quarters of 2022. Bootstrapping all the way through without challenges,
wow.
yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
8 month 8 months in. So what was your initial services or products during those first 8 months before you
Yeah. So
started letting in angel investors?
yeah. So one thing that I'm very confident and happy about is that we got into the business knowing that it's a very gray area. A
Mm,
gray area not only to us, but literally everyone that is in that space and anyone else who should be in that space and they don't know.
mm,
So we had made up our mind for the whole of 2021. We wanted to learn. And learning for us meant we can't send emails to farmers, we can't read the newspaper, we can't do online work, in terms of research. We have to go down to the
mm,
ground and understand why, number one, are farmers not getting access to capital? Because in this country, only under 3% of agricultural financing really happens to
mm,
farmers. And I'm talking across banks, microfinances, circles, and any other financial institution that pumps money into the agricultural sector. That's a very low number for a country that is, more than 20% dependent on agriculture. GDP is the highest
mm.
agriculture is the highest earner to our GDP here. And the same is true
Yes,
for many other African countries. So we really
true.
wanted to learn. So what we did is part of our day-to-day was go down into the county governments because our country is divided into 47 counties. We'd go to the
Mm,
nearest counties and try and understand why is it that farmers are selling off their livestock just to make a living and take care of bills. So we got to know that. Then what is the county government doing? What
mm,
are their challenges and all these? Then we'd go to the Ministry of Agriculture, would go to parastatals in the agricultural space and would spend a lot of time talking to them and
mm,
trying to understand. And when I say we, that is me, you know, only me. Because I really wanted to understand if I'm supposed to
mm,
offer a product to these farmers, what are my barriers to entry? And I did that subconsciously, not knowing that it would later help us to really map out the complexities of the
mm,
business. So we spent a lot of the personal savings that I had and a lot of money from family and friends just learning and learning
mm,
and learning and
mm,
getting to understand what has happened before, what was tried before that was similar to us, what failed, reading documents, looking at what FAO, Food Agriculture Organization, and the UN, United Nations, is saying,
mm,
what
mm,
USAID is saying,
mm,
what World Food Program is saying, what the government is saying, all these different scattered um, elements. And that is what
mm,
actually has been our foundation for the business because we got into the thick of things. why do we need to succeed in that area, and what is that we need to succeed in? Yeah.
uh, uh,
Yep.
yeah. So the first, I would say, then the first few months to a year about experimenting and learning and discovering what the problem is and trying to identify the problem that you're going to be addressing. And then
Yep.
I've seen on your company's profile as well, it's been now 3 years in
Correct.
this
Yes.
journey, right?
Yep.
So what was the next step? Okay, you learned and then you identified that farmers clearly have a problem
Yep.
financing, and if they're going to have to sell their, their main assets to get uh, financing for emergencies or so, then how would you go about solving, and what are not just the financing part, also I've seen that you offer two additional services. One is the trainings, and then also uh, tech, what is it, asset
Yep.
management tools for farmers, I would say. You
Correct.
can
Yes.
maybe
Yep.
elaborate on that as well. So you
Yep.
have a range of services that you offer these farmers. And
Yep.
so let's go to the next chapter and then move from
Yep.
there. You've discovered the problem, you've seen the hurdles, the challenges, and then
Yeah.
and then
So subconsciously, I didn't know what was happening in my mind. Now, at least I somehow see it. The
uh,
insurance experience that I had, the technology experience that I had, and the financial services, mainly lending, I didn't
uh,
know all these things were cooking in my mind together to form one thing. So,
uh,
for instance, we got to learn from quite a number of organizations and county governments and even the ministry the problem at hand. And now that we knew the problem at hand, we started asking ourselves then, which model can we copy? We looked at the model of motor vehicle financing in this country, and I don't know if it's the same in other markets, but I think it's somehow more or less similar, especially in Africa. So,
uh,
uh, one, we looked at the motor vehicle. The motor vehicle has a number plate. And because it has a number plate, the number plate is registered on a central database, which is a government central database. And there is a logbook to show that the logbook is owned by, the logbook, yes, which is represents the car, is actually owned by the owner of the vehicle. And
uh,
the owner of the vehicle can then take the logbook and walk into a financial institution. And if all the paperwork is right, they can actually secure financing about 50% of the value of the motor vehicle in hopefully less than 14 days. Nowadays, it's less than 6 hours. So we said we have to benchmark on this model.
so
But
it's like a
based
loan.
on everything, yeah, alone, yes. Yeah.
Uh,
So that is financing against the motor vehicle. So we copied the exact model. But then we needed to ask ourselves, how do we do the same in livestock? So you have a cow, which is not a cow. It's a living, breathing thing. So we started asking ourselves, with all the information we've gotten, what do we need to be able to identify the cow? So that's how we got into the tag, the ear tagging. Because
uh,
traditionally, livestock have always been branded. Hot irons, you brand the skin of the cow, the hot iron that has always been there. It's not advisable because it destroys the quality of the skin and to some extent gives the cow some trauma. Um, and of course, it definitely reduces the quality of the actual leather itself from the actual skin. So now that we knew that, we looked for a partner that could be willing to either sell us ear tags and also sell us software. And when I say we, I say I. It was only me at the time.
yeah.
So what then we did is that we looked for a company in Singapore. Um,
Uh,
requested the company in Singapore, please come and let us work together. And the company was so gracious because they were already trying to test the blockchain in livestock. And they had a similar model to what we had in mind. And so they sold us ear tags. So I did a transaction of the same savings that I had and got some 30 pieces of ear tags that were NFC, near field communication enabled. And then they also gave us their front their front and back access of a system, so a mobile app, a web app, and also they gave us the hardwares, the ear tags and the applicators, and took us through quite a number of training sessions. So the puzzle of being able to create an identification for the livestock was somehow complete, because you couldn't get someone locally that could properly help us understand beyond just putting the ear tag on the cow's ear. What is the purpose of it? Because most people then are just putting the ear tag for purposes of recording, for purposes of differentiating the livestock. But that was not it for us. We wanted to identify the cow and then collect the data and then use it for financing and use it for data analysis and many other things that we're going to discuss when we start talking about Imfuyo. So the first thing we did was, one, identify a partner that can help us to create livestock identification and ride-on technology. Then the second thing was, now what do we do with it? Now that we have the livestock, know your livestock. The KYC was pretty easy because we would print documents, hard paper manual documents, and ask the farmer to fill them out or help them fill them out. So that's the KYC. So the KYL was complete. Know your livestock, the KYC was also complete. So the third part, we asked ourselves, if we are copying the model of the motor vehicle, we need the cow to be insured. So what do we do? So we go to insurance companies, we learn about the insurance cover, which is purely a mortality cover. We are still using a pre-colonial product or colonial insurance product, unfortunately. We've tried to create channels and discussions of us modernizing the product. We hope to succeed in that. So when we get to the insurance bit, we also try to emphasize to them that we need a relationship, a formal relationship. They need to give us an MOU, which happened. They also need to possibly tailor make the product a bit, which also happened. And then the money. Remember, we don't have the capital to actually give the farmers out of our own investments, out of our own fund. So then we go to a bank. So the chain is actually, everything is organically just and naturally fitting in. Now we've known how to create a KYL, know your livestock profile database. Now we've known the KYC, which is pretty simple, and we know the feeds we are collecting. Now we know the livestock needs to be insured so that it can actually be used as an asset to acquire a loan. Luckily, we also bumped into a law in Kenya. In Kenya, there's a law called the Movable Property Security Rights Act of the year 2017. That is the Movable Property Security Rights Act of the year 2017, which says that livestock can be used as collateral to acquire a loan. The enforcement of it is still very, 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 very new, because we still have under 1% of livestock used as collateral to acquire loans in this country. So the last piece of that ecosystem was, now that we have gotten the three right, the data, the human data, the livestock data, the insurance partnership, then we need to actually give a loan. But why are we giving a loan? So we were able to learn that farmers need loans for a number of things, apart from the lifestyle related needs, paying of school fees, paying of medical bills, taking care of livelihood things, but critically running their livestock enterprise. Unfortunately, farmers still don't consider themselves entrepreneurs. They're still wrapping their mind around being an entrepreneur because they are running an enterprise. Most of them have not yet gotten to a point where they truly understand what that means. So we started figuring it out that farmers need better yielding cows if it's a dairy cow. Farmers need milk pumping machines. Farmers need better structures. Farmers need, of course, training. They need better semen, artificial insemination, and all these things, you could package them into a loan. So for instance, a farmer needs a high milk yielding cow, which is about $1,000. So then we'd bring this before a financial institution. So we went around and got a number of financial institutions and requested them to pilot with us, right after understanding the steps that we've put in place. The KYL, know your livestock, the KYC, know your customer, which is the farmer, the insurance component of insuring the same livestock, and then the fourth piece is now give money to this farmer about
mm,
20% to 50% of the value of that livestock. And then the
mm,
repayments would be supported, or the credit worthiness would be supported by the fact that this farmer is earning some milk proceeds, or they're earning income from the sale of milk. So somehow the
mm,
whole chain, the whole ecosystem came together at that age, at that time. But the hurdles, of course, were the entry and persuasion needed to actually bring an insurance company to the table to really understand what you're building, and also bring a financial institution to really understand and see the true sense and see where they're getting in, has been a
mm,
big problem until now. Yeah.
mm,
So
mm.
that's how we got into it. Yeah.
Wow. For just a few things that I want to clarify. What some abbreviations that you dropped in there? KYL, KYC. What do they stand for, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So KYL is what we coined. We coined KYL, which means
Uh,
knowing your livestock. It's
uh,
it's a name that we associate with being able to create a good profile of the cow or good
uh,
profile of the goat.
uh,
So I'm talking
uh,
about being able to know the breed, the type, the
uh,
weight, the height, the
uh,
production data, health data, nutrition data,
uh,
all that. So we call it the KYL, know your livestock.
uh,
This data is
uh,
very important here. The KYC is know your custom, which is the usual data that is picked from a human being for
uh,
a certain service provision, and mainly in the area of financial services, maybe a loan or
uh,
any other financial service.
uh. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. So also, you mentioned a few times that you were alone for a few of throughout your like journey in building Imfuyo, like you were alone for some time. So
Yeah.
now, how big is your team, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. So we have a team of 7 people on a permanent
Uh,
base,
uh,
but we extended to about 11 people, which is an addition of about 4 part-time
uh.
employees. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So now, what's the current, like you said, now you're also currently having a challenge to enroll insurance companies to partner with you and give, or is it insurance companies or banks that you're struggling with at the moment?
Yeah. Yeah. So actually both, but just before we get into that,
Uh,
our understanding of our business 1 year ago is very different. 2 years
uh,
ago is very different, and 3 years ago is very different. So what I talked about earlier was within the domain of law education. What we were trying to do then, from research, piloting, trying to prove if there's a need, and how we um, get to provide value not only to the customers but to partners. So we have built over time different experiences as far as business is concerned. And now we know that we are solving a multi-layered problem. Initially, we thought we were solving a farmer problem. The minute we started bringing different services, and then we realized there are multi-layered problems. For instance, identification of livestock brings in what you call the National Livestock Registry. In this country, we don't have a national database of livestock. Recently, there was an expression of interest to create a national livestock database, which can solve a million and one things. So that's a policy thing and an execution thing.
uh, uh,
So the other thing that we learned in terms of a multi-layer problem is the veterinary area. The veterinary area, we have arguably less than 60,000 veterinary officers in this country. So the veterinary area is still pretty young. And the number of livestock unattended are so many. And there's no veterinary data, so to say. So
uh,
because of no animal livestock registry, a veterinary officer cannot easily go to a national database and zero in or narrow in into a particular region and understand that region's history in terms of illnesses, in terms of diseases treated, in terms of feeding, nutrition, types of cows, etc., etc. So again, goes back to the database. The veterinary practice here is not very respected, so to say, because again, most people
uh,
consider it to be a backward type of profession, again, because it's agriculture. And if you look at the colonial trend of life, where we moved from blue collar jobs into white collar jobs because of the colonization effect, we are still a young nation under 70 years old. So that's another problem. So the first one is National Livestock Database. The second one is the gaps in veterinary practice. And then three, enter insurance. Livestock insurance in this country is still under 0.00005%. Just livestock insurance itself. It's a drop in the ocean. Farmers still don't know the benefits. Farmers still don't trust it. Farmers are getting to understand it now. Farmers have insured livestock in the past, and insurance companies didn't honor their claims. So there are a lot of moving bits and pieces there. Then lastly is the actual use of the livestock as collateral in the absence of a livestock registry. So these four problems have become what we are passionate about solving now. Apart from making sure we have collected the right human data, livestock data, ensure the livestock and offer the loan, we are now also starting to get into policy. What can we tell the government? What can we tell private players? What innovation can we bring in collaboration with local players and international players to solve not only policy, but also create a legal, strong, solid framework that cuts across the whole livestock value chain? So recently, we've just been forced to get into milk production and goat milk production for that matter, where we brought farmers in a group, took them through a 6 months program on financial literacy, on the use of loan, on dairy goat keeping, on all these different things, including structures of the goats, how to treat the cow, how to feed the cow, nutrition, etc., etc. Then graduated them and bought for them goods on a loan model. Again, so we applied the data collection aspect. We also applied the insurance aspect and then gave the credit aspect. And then took them through progressively on programs to help them now produce milk. And now they're producing milk. We've recently donated 100 liters worth of a milk chilling freezer. And now some of the farmers, about 9, are doing about 20 liters of milk. And we have just recently gotten the market, $1 per liter. So what am I saying? Imfuyo has gotten to a place where it's no longer looking at credit only. We are now looking at the whole livestock value chain, because the whole livestock value chain has always been left behind. And it's been left behind in terms of innovations. And innovation could be technical and non-technical. Technology has always been missing in the whole livestock value chain. Policy has always been almost non-existent. Veterinary ecosystems, credit ecosystems, and the risking of that ecosystem, and most importantly, data. So now Imfuyo has become a multi-layered organization that is solving one need, but addressing multiple underlying problems. And the need we want to solve is credit plus data in one. And the more we do that, the more all these underlying problems are getting solved directly and indirectly. For instance, in the goat milk value chain, which goat milk in this country is arguably less than 5% of the national milk production. We've just realized that we have an opportunity to work with about 100,000 farmers in about 2 years and increase the milk production, even if it's 1% or 0.1% of goat milk. That's a whole different line. And all we are doing is applying data and technology. Another one, milk logistics. We have realized there's a problem with milk logistics, because if milk is being collected from one village to the next village, a lot of things happen. The containers being used could be contaminated. The rider or the motorbike guy could be hijacked. Could have mechanical problems with the motorbike. That he doesn't have cooling systems. So the whole milk logistics area needs a bit of improvement. And all we are doing is just solving the data and finance problem, which indirectly and directly is solving all those different problems. The other underlying problem that Imfuyo is solving is the fact that farmers are always after better breeds, but they don't get the better breeds, unfortunately. They are parastatals and private organizations here that deal with a lot of breeding and unique breeding models and unique breeds that they bring in from outside, from outside the continent, but they are not getting to the farmers. So how do we get them there? The other thing is helping farmers just understand how to properly pick the business as an enterprise. You just help them in understanding you can actually make more money if you put in these structures right. And all this is at the apex of data and finance. So we are finding ourselves solving problems directly and indirectly. And this is what has made our business so interesting, because we have 10 different problems to solve from one problem. And the area has really been left behind for so many years. And when you look at other countries, it is literally the same. Any other country in Africa is facing the same. That is what makes our industry extremely exciting. Yeah. Yeah.
It's been like I said, it's been neglected for some reason due to it being an underlooked profession or maybe other reasons, but it's been neglected. And I can speak the same about my country, Ethiopia, and you're on the right track. And it's very interesting to see the work that you're doing along with farmers, and it's just a very impactful work. It's gonna have a chain effect throughout the whole economy, I believe. It's just
Yes.
farmers contribute so much, and agriculture generally contributes so much to the economy of a country, and it's gonna have solving that problem is gonna create so many opportunities, and
Yeah.
it's gonna have so much value later in the future. And I really
Yeah.
want to say I admire the work that you're doing, and
Thank
the
you. And I would like
yeah,
to add
yeah,
a point there. I would like to add a point there. So, because of how neglected this area is
yeah.
and how the world is shaping and moving in the areas of food production, food security, and climatic challenges. So, you're starting to see people like Forbes. Forbes published an article recently called The Next Revolution, the next fintech revolution. And the next fintech revolution, according to Forbes, is all agriculture. So the agri-tech, agri-fintech, and other revolutions in agriculture, use of finance, use of technology. So you are very right. In the next coming years, you'll find so many innovations in agriculture, not only focusing on methane, green gas house emissions, but literally focusing on mass production of food at scale. And this is definitely coming. So you'll find even policymakers getting more excited and getting more encouraged to drive policy that makes sense. Because right now, unfortunately, a policymaker in this country that is looking at the banking industry versus an agriculture industry, they will park the agriculture industry and deal with the banking industry, or motor vehicle and agriculture. They'll park the agriculture and look at the motor vehicle because they truly don't understand how to go about it. So there are all these things that are slowly coming together, and you will see arguably over the next few years a lot of organizations coming into this area just to make sure that the innovations are heightened to a point where businesses are making money and the economy is thriving. So everything is somehow just coming in together.
Yeah. It's in a way, it's until the model is proven, until that there is a story to say
Yeah.
like a company, a startup has actually managed to solve a very critical problem and in some very specific area. And then when that news gets around, we're gonna see a lot of copycats all around, like the same with
Yeah. Yeah.
all the other businesses. It's just until the model is proven and the value is seen by other investors or business owners. And so I hope that your company is going to be that success story that we're going to hear
Yeah.
about in the coming, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know, 5 to 10 years. I hope we're going to see
Yeah.
something exciting uh, come to a fruition. So, uh, going from here, I would like to hear if there is any success stories that you would like to share with a farmer, and
Yeah,
we'll conclude on this one because I've already taken too much of your time. I would like to hear
yeah.
a story of some farmer or uh, yeah, a client or a customer that you worked with and produced
Yeah,
the value and have seen the impact. And
yeah.
then,
We have a lot of those. We have a lot and a lot of those. Yeah. So we
yeah,
have. Let me just pick a few. So one, we've paid school fees for
mm,
farmers, not because we are a donor, no, but a farmer says, "Hey, I need you to pay my school fees, or rather my children's school fees, and
mm,
here is my milk statements. Here is my livestock. What can you do with it?"
mm,
So we end up just providing our services of data and finance. But in this case now, the finance is not
mm,
going to promote the agricultural setup of the business, the production of the business in terms of milk and the dairy cow. It goes
mm,
elsewhere. So we've paid school fees for farmers of the same model, and farmers are always saying, "Thank you so much. You have enabled me to educate my child, and I'm paying
mm,
your loan bits by bits." That's
mm,
one. Two, we have seen instances where we have provided our usual services of data and finance, and livestock have actually died, and the farmer had not insured the cows prior to our engagement. So now that they insure them, that we have engaged them, the cows have died. We've seen farmers being paid, you know,
wow,
um,
wow,
which is a surprise to them because now when a farmer loses a cow or a goat and it's not insured, that is a forgotten story. But when the farmer's cow has just passed on and they've called us and it's within the same policy, the same livestock insurance policy, the farmer gets, paid. We've seen farmers
wow,
get paid in under 60 days. A farmer tells you, "I've just received this deposit into the account or a check of
mm,
$800, $1,500, and now I can buy another cow or I can
wow,
do something else." That's another success story. We've also
mm,
seen instances where farmers are now happy with records. And I
mm,
mean records in terms of production, nutrition, and health, where a farmer can easily open what we call a cow book or kitabu cha ng'ombe, that's Swahili, where a farmer can
mm,
tell you, "I've been keeping records of my cow, and I've just realized over the last 3 months, this cow has
mm,
given me X amount of money. This cow has consumed X
mm,
amount of
mm,
fodder.
mm,
This cow has been vaccinated, this, that, and that has costed me X amount of money. And I've just realized this cow's performance is
mm,
lower on this day of the month, is higher on that day of the month. And I'm asking myself what could be the problem, and we investigate a bit only to learn possibly it's this issue or that issue." So the ability for farmers to start acknowledging the use of data. And finally,
mm,
we have seen many use cases where farmers have actually been able to afford new livestock. So I'm talking about a cow and a goat. And they're saying this is an additional income earner or asset. And we have guided them on products programs that have seen them produce more than $100 new income month on month, and progressively it grows even to about $400 worth of milk sales, and that is good for a farmer in the rural part of the country. Practically, all I'm saying is, out of the four, examples, we've seen impact-driven initiatives just by handling
mm.
two things: data and finance in the livestock
Finance.
value chain. Yeah,
Mm. Wow,
yeah,
that's very, very impactful work. It's it's not just a business, it's not just making money, but it's actually a satisfying path, you know. Hearing the
correct.
stories, I mean, changing lives, creating opportunities for underserved communities. It's really kudos to you and
Correct.
your team for what you're building.
Thank you. I'll tell you what we truly hope to achieve as a business. First
Mm,
is income. We definitely want to make money and make more money. So first is income. We definitely want to make more money and prosper in that area as far as incomes are concerned, revenues and all these things. But the second one is greater, which is impact. People downplay impact a lot because people think of impact as donor-funded initiatives. No. Impact is the value that keeps our business going. The fact that a farmer can say, I am able to educate my child because Imfuyo has been able to finance me a cow, and the cow does the following one, helps me consume milk in the house, about a liter or so worth of milk, and sell possibly 10 more liters in a day out of the same production of the cow. Thirdly, earn money from the same 10 liters that has helped me add more cows, pay school fees, pay medical bills, invest here, save there, improve myself, improve my family. So that is the value. The same way, the reason why I want to buy a mobile phone is because I can communicate, and many other things that it does for me. So people highly overlook impact in our area of business. They try to treat it as a donor-free type of a thing, but no. It's purely the value that will give you the income. So we're at a place where we want to scale this. We have desires of serving over 1 million farmers over the years, over the next years to come, let's say like 5 years or so, across the whole continent. And not only just serve them on data and credit, but also extend the same credit across the whole value chain. Milk, meat, leather, production, and all these different ecosystems. So the future is quite elaborate for our business.
Yeah. Wow. Super excited for what's to come. And we've gone into like there is still so much to talk about, but we've went into some details about your corporate journey and your now what you're doing at Imfuyo. And I would really wish that at some point later in time, I would like to catch up with you and check on the progress and see the journey after the fact that we're just talking now, and then see the journey in between and compare the progress and see the achievements, because this is a problem across Africa, and from experience I know this is definitely a problem in Ethiopia, and there is possibly lots of opportunity that's yet to be explored. And I want to conclude on a note for our audience who's going to be watching this now or later, sometime later in the future, maybe it could be a year or two. What do you see the opportunities in this industry to be? And generally just summarize why someone should also get into entrepreneurship in your opinion, and also summarize on a point why this specific agriculture is a very exciting industry to be involved in.
So the first thing is these specific spaces are developed. There's literally nothing in the whole livestock value chain that you can talk about in Africa, in all the nations of Africa, and say it has been deeply, deeply engaged or deeply done, overdeveloped. It's not like e-commerce. E-commerce has been oversubscribed. If you look at the milk value chain, 101 problems. If you look at the beef value chain, 1,000,001 problems. If you look at the data, non-existent. You look at the finance, non-existent. Insurance product, problematic. So you're looking at an industry that can easily develop over a very long period of time, and where there are so many underdeveloped complexities and challenges, that is where people make money. But people don't want to get into it now. But we've seen many organizations starting to look at it keenly and start getting deep into it, including the World Banks, the USA, and all that. So mine is to tell this to anyone get into the value chain of livestock, come with an open mind. You may pivot and end up succeeding in so many ways. And what is coming next within the next 10 years or so is a full development of this livestock value chain. And the good thing is, if you do it in one place, you replicate across the whole continent. Now, to anyone that is interested in getting into entrepreneurship, uh, let me just quote Elon Musk because everyone knows this.
Sure.
Elon Musk says entrepreneurship is, I think, chewing glass and staring into the abyss. So that is true because it is
Yeah.
extremely engaging. It engages your body, mind, soul. Forget about the resources. The resources somehow are not what keeps you going. It is how properly you truly understand what you're after. If you want to solve a problem, you really have to get into it and you have to be prepared to face all manner of challenges. Then you must always remind yourself something that I've always been told. Always look for opportunities in adversities. That is the only thing that keeps an entrepreneur. That is the only thing. But that's the scary side. Now the fun side is this. Anyone that wants to get into the entrepreneurship side, you get to be your own boss, of course. You also get to be your own thinker. You get to be your cheerleader, your critic, and depending on the type of business, you can get to be your own custom, the first custom. And you do get to make money as well. And you do get to, write yourself a check every single month. And by that, I mean, you can decide to work hard and make $100 this month, or make $10,000 this month, or $30,000 this month. So you get to actually dictate the type of income you want, even if it's over time. That in itself gives you a lot of freedom and a lot of peace. But don't forget the downside of it. That's my advice to anyone who wants to get into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I really want to steer away from, you know, inspiration, motivation, and things of that nature because uh, it's it's really hard to replicate motivation, but I cannot help feel motivated and inspired just from listening to you, you know. And it's actually someone who's actually building a business, and your words carry more value and more weight. And so
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate what you said now. And I hope whoever's gonna be listening to this, I hope they take it to heart. And I want to say, man, like thank you so much for your time. I'm really I'm telling you, it's a really exciting journey that you're on, and I cannot wait to hear what you're gonna accomplish in the coming few
Thank
years.
you. Thank you so much, Johannes, for giving me this time. It's been an amazing conversation. And definitely I look forward to more of this type of conversations.
Thank you so much, Bernard. Have a good time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.